Hello, I'm Eric Snodgrass, and thank you for watching today's Western U.S. Regional Forecast video brought to you by Nutrien Ag Solutions. Well, we got to start off by taking a look at our water vapor imagery across the Pacific Ocean. And as this kind of continues to loop here, you're going to see the next two systems are going to be hitting much of the West Coast, specifically Northern California and Oregon over the coming days. That moisture will spread into the Intermountain West, building up some snowpack as well. But the major feature is this one right in through here. That thing that you see going right there, that's a pretty powerful atmospheric river that will be setting its sights here on parts of the Northwest and part of Northern California in the coming days. But leading into this, let's just take a look at where we are right now with our moisture, because we're getting to the end of our wet season here. So the latest U.S. Drought Monitor update came out just the other day on Thursday. So what you're looking at here is a pretty remarkable map. This is, to be honest, about the least total area I've seen covered by drought in a long time. We are concerned here about especially parts of Washington, because throughout much of this water year, which is represented here, the water year begins on October 1st. What we can see is that we've built up a deficit. You can see that right in through here in coastal Oregon and Washington, we have some locations that are better than 10 inches in deficit over that time period. Northern parts of Idaho and parts of the Rocky Mountains there in Montana also in deficit. Meanwhile, California has been exceptionally wet, ending a long-standing drought there. Some locations are 10 inches over normal. And because of that, let's just take a look at our snowpack and some reservoir levels in California. We can see that especially in Northern California, we are well over 100% of average on our reservoir conditions. And when you take a look at snow coming out of the Sierra Nevada mountains, we're anywhere between 175 and over 200% of normal. The mountains are still packed with snow, and we love to see this on April 4th. This is fantastic for our upcoming irrigation season, where we're going to get this water into our river systems and then out into the fields. The only spot that's really kind of below average would be much of northern Idaho, parts of the northern Rockies and Montana, but then really getting into Washington State, where numbers are still, they're 70 to 90%, but which is better than 30%, which I have seen them that low. But still, we would have liked to have seen more precipitation this past winter. Well, we're going to help some of that out over the coming days. Not so much the snowpack due to some of the warmth, but we're certainly going to be bringing in some precipitation. I want to animate forward here the high-resolution NAM model. Let's get this out to about right here. This is 10 a.m. on Friday morning. You're going to see the first major wave coming on shore here. Look at this. So that system that was sitting just off the coast you saw in the water vapor imagery brings in its first front that hits the west coast, and it's going to bring a lot of coastal precipitation to Washington, Oregon, and California. We may even see some thunderstorms out of this as we push this air over the mountains here into Idaho and Montana. Same thing for Nevada. So this is going to be widely scattered showers throughout much of this evening for much of the Intermountain West. Well, that's just round one, so let's get here into early Saturday morning. So you can see early Saturday morning, early where things are clearing out. But here comes the next round for your Saturday around 10, 11 o'clock in the morning, pushing on shore. So until we break down this pattern in the East Pacific, we're going to continue to see these fronts pushing through, bringing in quite a bit of precipitation. I got you all the way out to early morning on Sunday. You can see again the next round coming in here into parts of Washington and Oregon. Now, we need this. We need this rain in this area. But certainly, it's going to ruin our weekend, I think, for some of us here. Now, let's take a look at the pattern before we look at the longer-term precipitation. Clearly dominating the flow right now is the strong Pacific jet marked by this trough. And as long as that trough is there, we're going to keep funneling in the moisture. So let's kind of look to see when this thing breaks down. We certainly see the deeper trough there in the Gulf of Alaska extending into the Central Pacific, hanging on through our weekend. And whenever we see this pattern where there's a ridge kind of sitting here, yeah, that's going to keep Southern California relatively dry, but zipping around that trough is quite a bit of moisture. So this is not a high over low pattern. This is a low over high pattern, and that is one that tends to be quite wet for us along the Pacific coast here. Now, as we continue to push this through, I want to show you a bit of a change that's going to happen early next week. One of the things we're going to be watching here is the development of a large ridge that's going to be sitting somewhere here over Greenland. And what that's going to do is that's going to allow for more frequent troughing events to be coming through the midsection of the country, cooling a lot of that down. But that'll allow for some weak ridging that will happen here in parts of the Pacific. So therefore, after we get through this weekend, our storm systems are going to kind of come in around that ridge, and those are typically more drier pattern moving forward. So we got wetter conditions getting us through early next week, but then you're going to see here in a few minutes that this new pattern is going to help to dry things down a little bit. Let's see how it goes though. We're only out here to next Wednesday. Let's take this on out to Thursday and Friday. We are watching this deeper trough that's going to try to form here in Southern California, Southern Nevada, and parts of Arizona. And as that one ejects into this area, we could be bringing in, again, some risk for some severe weather in parts of the West, especially over there in the Four Corners states. But with this system, some cooler temperatures sliding in as well. But again, this isn't a trough that came to us off of the Pacific, so it's a little bit different configuration. That ridge is what's dominating things. And then as you get you all the way out to about day 10, we do see the pattern stays relatively unblocked after we get through the middle of next week. But by the time we get out to April 15th, we do have another trough kind of sneaking in here into the Pacific Northwest. And that could most certainly be bringing in some more precipitation for the states that need it, Oregon and Washington. Okay, that's the pattern. Let's look at the timing of this. We're going to go to our European model now. So here's that first band Friday midday coming through. Let's just watch this play on out. You can see all of this precipitation here that's going to get us going this weekend. So again, Friday afternoon, Saturday evening, getting into the overnight hours on Saturday. Look, by the time we get into Saturday mid-morning, that's our next big round pushing through. It's all kind of coming around this deeper trough feature that's sitting here in the East Pacific. Here comes that atmospheric river event. You can see it stretching right here, pulling that moisture. You saw this in the water vapor imagery at the beginning. There it is, just pulling that moisture straight in here into parts of Northern California, coastal Oregon by the time we get into Sunday afternoon. And that just takes aim and soaks us Sunday through Monday in this area. But remember, the ridge builds in after Tuesday. See the high pressure sitting here? Now you watch, you'll see systems have to go around that. So they're now going to start to come in right up here through British Columbia down into basically the Puget Sound and hitting Washington first. So see the next system comes in like this. There it is. Kind of snuck around the top there. Meanwhile, a deeper trough develops here in parts of the Mountain West, and that's where we're going to be getting some snow out of this around April 9th, 10th, and 11th here at the higher elevations. But that ridge is going to make for a pretty nice end of the next week for much of California, much of Nevada. And that's because that's really going to change the trajectory of our systems to stop coming right out of the Central Pacific, and then they have to go around this ridge. So that's why the beginning of the time period is wet, but we're going to switch over to a bit of a drier time period after that. Again, you see that next system there? This is all the way out to next weekend. It's got to come over the top, and it just comes in and hits parts of Washington and Oregon, leaving much of California dry. So we look at total accumulated precipitation through the next week. Remember, much of this is coming in the next 5 days. So we see here a lot of coastal rainfall. That is for sure. Some locations possibly picking up well over 3, 4, 5 inches of rain. And as these systems take aim, remember the atmospheric river was like this. We're going to be building up some snowpack here in the Rocky Mountains and parts of Montana and Idaho, specifically right in here in the Sawtooth, where we may pick up an additional, it kind of looks like here, and maybe an additional 8 to some locations over 20 inches of snow at higher elevation. Meanwhile, much of the Cascades don't pick up too much. The Blue Mountains don't pick up too much either, and even the Sierra Nevada don't tend to pick up too much. We got a bit of a warmer pattern here with this one coming up. Just to show you those California rainfall amounts, remember the main target is going to be, of course, Northern California and southern parts of Oregon. So you can see that from the bay north, we're picking up anywhere between 0.2 to a half inch, and then as you get north of there, very wet time period here coming up over the next 5 days, possibly picking up 2 to 5 inches. Southern California, we're going to largely miss out on a lot of this. With each of those big fronts that come through like this, we are, of course, going to get a shot at some showers, but not looking at major accumulations in the southern half of the state. Okay, looking at to week 2, told you with week 2, with that ridge that develops here, this is going to be a drier time period for much of the West Coast. So we're certainly going to be enjoying some warmer, nicer weather. Now, speaking of warm, nice weather, I'm going to show you something here from the U.S. National Phenology Network. What the map you're looking at here is a thing that they put together by looking at something called the Spring Leaf Index Anomaly. It kind of gives us an idea of how early or how late spring is. And we can see that where we're making these calculations, much of California and through here is having a bit of an early spring. We've been hearing about these incredible spring blooms that have been happening, and that's certainly been an enjoyable thing. After the wet week, and we'll go back into nicer weather here. Now let's take a look at what those temperatures are going to look like. You notice it's Friday afternoon. Certainly things are going to be cooler than average as that big wave of precipitation comes on shore. And that's really going to be the name of the game. Anytime we see some cooler anomalies, it's just due to cloud cover. It's just due to precipitation. But overall, you're going to see that once we get past this weekend, we got a bit of a warm-up coming for early next week. Look at this. This is Monday and Tuesday high temperatures. And things are going to look pretty nice. Remember, by next Tuesday, we're watching that deeper trough feature swing through, hence the cooler conditions coming. But you'll see you're going to rebound in your temperatures pretty quickly once we get toward the middle and end of next week, back toward much more climatological average here along the west coast, where that trough sits here in the Intermountain West, maybe some cooler temperatures in place. So certainly not too far of a deviation from normal along the west coast, but really out west. Whereas in the middle part of the country, we're going to slide back into some really cool weather here. Okay, got some brand new stuff I'm excited to show you here. This just came out last night. This is our new long-range forecast. We're just going to look out 2 months here. Mainly because of some of the bigger systems that are coming through or have already come through parts of California, Oregon, Washington. We do see that April is going to carry a bit of a wet bias, but a lot of this is coming in the next several days here. That'll keep us wet for much of the month. When we get out into the month of May, we see much of the West, while it does carry a slight wet bias, is really not picking up on too big of a deviation from normal here. When it comes to temperatures, some of the cooler anomalies that you see tucked away out west, a lot of this is due to big snowpack. So the model's responding to what we call sensible cooling of the atmosphere due to that snowpack. So that's why we see these cooler anomalies. In the Central Valley of California, along the coast, we don't expect to see too big of a deviation from normal in terms of temperatures. And a lot of that lasts into May. Again, this is just the model responding, I think, to all the snowpack we have in the Rocky Mountains. This also may be indicative, though, of a very, very active spring pattern with some troughing here, ridging over the southeast, which could mean that this section of the country really gets lit up with quite a bit of severe weather. But we'll keep you updated with that on our long-range forecasts and our U.S. forecasts that come out every Monday morning and every Thursday morning. But with that, I'll go ahead and wrap it up right here. Hope you all have a great weekend. Keep the umbrella handy because things are looking kind of soggy over the next 5 days. We at Nutrien Ag Solutions hope you look forward to our next Western Regional Forecast video coming out on Tuesday morning. In the meantime, have a great week and we'll talk to you again soon. Thank you.